So she was.
In the opulent silence of the Voss mansion, where crystal chandeliers hung like frozen tears and marble floors echoed only the footsteps of the indifferent, Elena Ramirez froze mid-step. She was just a maid, invisible in her starched uniform, dusting the edges of a world that wasn't hers. But there, in the sunlit conservatory, sat Mrs. Voss, the billionaire's mother, staring out at the manicured gardens with eyes that held oceans of unspoken grief. Deaf since birth, abandoned by a son too consumed by empires to notice her isolation, she signed to herself in frantic loops, her hands pleading for connection in a house full of echoes. Elena's heart shattered. She knew that language of loss all too well. Without thinking, she set down her duster and signed back, her fingers forming words of warmth. Good morning. The flowers are beautiful today, aren't they? Mrs. Voss's head snapped up, her face blooming from shock to a tearful smile, the first genuine one in years. In that instant, a bridge formed across chasms of class and silence, pulling Elena into a storm of compassion she never saw coming. Elena Ramirez had always been the kind of woman who blended into the background, her life a tapestry woven from threads of hardship and quiet resilience. Born in a cramped apartment in the city's underbelly, she grew up caring for her younger sister, Maria, who was born deaf after a childhood illness. Their parents had abandoned them early, father to the bottle, mother to the streets, leaving Elena to navigate a world that often turned a blind eye to the vulnerable. She learned American Sign Language, ASL, not from books, but from necessity, her small hands mirroring Maria's to share stories, dreams, and the occasional laugh amid the poverty that clung to them like dust. But grief struck hard when Maria succumbed to a rare infection at 16, leaving Elena alone at 18, scraping by on odd jobs until she landed the maid position at the Voss estate. It paid just enough to cover her tiny rented room, but eviction notices loomed like shadows, a constant reminder of her fragility. The Voss mansion was a fortress of wealth, perched on a hill overlooking the sprawling city. Alexander Voss, the self-made billionaire tech mogul, had built his empire from nothing, his sharp mind turning algorithms into fortunes. But success came at a cost. His father had died young in a car accident, plunging his mother, Isabella Voss, into a deeper isolation. Deaf and now widowed, Isabella retreated into herself, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by the grief of loss and the abandonment she felt from her only son. Alexander loved her, in his way, providing every luxury, from private nurses to imported silks, but he was always too busy, his days filled with board meetings and mergers. He hired staff to tend to her needs, assuming money could fill the void of human connection. Isabella's hands, once eloquent in sign, now trembled with unspoken pain, her world shrinking to the conservatory where she watched birds flit by, symbols of the freedom she craved. Elena's first weeks were routine, polishing silver, laundering linens, avoiding the stern housekeeper's gaze. But one rainy afternoon, as she tidied the conservatory, she caught Isabella signing to a potted orchid, her gestures frantic and laced with sorrow. "Why won't anyone listen?" her hands asked the air. Elena hesitated, her heart pounding. She wasn't supposed to interact beyond necessities. Maids were ghosts in this house. Yet, the pull was irresistible. Maria's memory whispered in her mind. Dropping her cloth, Elena approached and signed, "I can't hear you. What's wrong?" Isabella's eyes widened in surprise, then flooded with tears. For the first time in years, someone saw her, not as a burden, but as a person. What followed was a tentative bloom of kindness. Elena began slipping in during breaks, signing stories of her life, the bustling markets of her childhood, Maria's infectious laugh. Isabella, in turn, shared fragments of her past, growing up deaf in a hearing world, meeting her husband who learned ASL just for her, the joy of Alexander's birth. Their conversations were lifelines, pulling Isabella from her isolation. She laughed, actually laughed, when Elena described a comical mishap with a vacuum cleaner. But tension simmered beneath. Alexander, catching glimpses from his home office, dismissed it at first. "The maid? Mother doesn't need chit-chat," he'd mutter to his assistant, his grief over his father's death manifesting as emotional walls. Meanwhile, Elena's own struggles mounted, a leaking roof in her apartment, bills piling up, the ache of loneliness without Maria. One evening, after a long day, she confided in Isabella, signing through tears. "Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning, and no one cares." Isabella reached out, her hand steady on Elena's. "I care," she signed back. "You're not alone." As days turned to weeks, this small act of compassion rippled outward. Isabella's mood lifted. She ate more, ventured out of the conservatory. Elena found solace in the connection, a balm for her grief. But challenges arose. The housekeeper warned Elena about overstepping, and Alexander's rare visits were laced with impatience. One night, during a storm, Isabella panicked alone in her room, her hearing aids useless against the thunder she couldn't hear but felt in vibrations. Elena, working late, rushed in and signed calming words, holding her until the fear passed. Alexander arrived home unexpectedly, witnessing the scene. His face twisted in surprise, then something softer, vulnerability. "How did you know what to do?" he asked Elena later, his voice gruff. She simply replied, "I listened with my heart." In that moment, cracks formed in his armored world, hinting at change. Yet, Elena's poverty pressed on. An eviction notice arrived, forcing her to wonder if kindness could truly alter fate. Little did she know, the seeds of transformation were just beginning to sprout, weaving their lives in unexpected ways. As the seasons shifted from autumn's chill to winter's embrace, the Voss mansion transformed subtly, like a frozen lake thawing under tentative sunlight. Elena's quiet acts of kindness had ignited a spark in Isabella, who now greeted each day with renewed purpose. She insisted on daily lessons, where Elena taught her new signs for modern things, smartphones, video calls. Bridging the gap technology had widened. In return, Isabella shared wisdom from her life, signing tales of resilience that bolstered Elena's spirit amid her mounting woes. Poverty's grip tightened. Elena's landlord demanded back rent, and her second job at a diner left her exhausted, her hands raw from scrubbing. Grief over Maria resurfaced in dreams, leaving her isolated in a city of millions. Yet, in Isabella's company, she found hope, a reminder that connection could heal even the deepest wounds. Alexander, observing from afar, felt the stirrings of unease. His empire thrived, but his personal life was barren, haunted by his father's abrupt death and the guilt of neglecting his mother. Isabella's blooming joy forced him to confront his abandonment. He'd buried his grief in work, assuming provision equaled love. One evening, he joined them in the conservatory, awkwardly attempting a sign for hello. Elena guided his hands patiently, her touch sending an unexpected warmth through him. "It's about intention, not perfection," she signed and voiced, her eyes meeting his with quiet strength. Alexander's walls crumbled a fraction. He began lingering, learning ASL basics. But tension brewed. Rumors spread among staff about the maid's favoritism, and Alexander's business faced a crisis, a hostile takeover bid that demanded his full attention, pulling him away again. Elena's compassion deepened the bond. When Isabella fell ill with a flu, Elena stayed overnight, signing soothing stories until sleep came. Isabella, recovering, signed her gratitude. "You've given me back my voice." In a vulnerable moment, she confessed her fear of dying alone, abandoned by time and family. Elena, tears streaming, shared her own abandonment, parents gone, sister lost, and how kindness had been her anchor. This exchange forged a mother-daughter-like tie, but struggles persisted. Alexander, stressed, snapped at Elena one day. "You're just the help, don't get too involved." Hurt, she nearly quit, but Isabella's plea kept her. "He needs you too. He's lost, like I was." The turning point came unexpectedly, kindness circling back in waves. During a gala Alexander hosted, Isabella insisted on attending, her first in years. Elena accompanied as interpreter, dressed in a borrowed gown that made her feel out of place among the elite. Chaos ensued when a guest insulted Isabella's deafness, mocking her signs. Elena defended her fiercely, signing and voicing with poise. Her words are as powerful as yours, perhaps more, because they're felt in the soul. The room fell silent. Alexander, witnessing, felt a surge of admiration and shame. Later, he apologized, confessing his grief. I pushed everyone away after Dad died. I didn't know how to connect. Elena signed to Isabella, who reached for her son, their hands entwining in forgiveness. But fate tested them further. Elena's eviction loomed. She confided in Isabella, who, in a bold act, signed to Alexander. Help her, as she's helped us. Shocked, he learned of Elena's past, her sister's death, her solitary fight. Moved, he offered her a position as Isabella's personal companion, with fair pay and housing on the estate. Yet, the full circle unfolded deeper. Isabella, inspired, started a foundation for deaf education, funding scholarships in Maria's name. Elena, no longer isolated, found purpose leading it. Alexander, transformed, scaled back work, prioritizing family. Romance blossomed subtly between him and Elena, built on mutual respect and shared healing. In the end, as spring flowers bloomed, the trio sat in the conservatory, signing laughter and love. Elena's small act had mended a broken family, lifting her from poverty's grasp. Kindness, like a ripple in a pond, had returned amplified, proving that empathy could rewrite destinies. In a world often divided by silence and status, this story reminds us that true wealth lies not in fortunes amassed, but in the hearts we touch with empathy, the love we give without expectation, and the humanity we rediscover in one another's vulnerabilities, proving that even the smallest gesture of compassion can echo eternally, healing wounds and uniting souls across unimaginable divides. Moral of the story: in the quiet language of kindness, we find the power to bridge divides, heal hidden wounds, and transform lives in ways that wealth alone never could.